I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking about this one thing made them love you twice as much.
Twice as much.
Believe it or not, your behaviors, your attributes, the things that you bring into somebody's life, they really do make a difference in a connection and when somebody sees your value or how valuable you are to them in their life, right? So the qualities that you have, even though you're going through a breakup and you feel like that person doesn't remember those things or think about those things, they do, okay? And a lot of times when you give somebody time and space, they are able to process those things and see the value you really have in their life. And they'll even tell you that. They'll tell you those things that they thought about and missed about you. And you're kind of shocked to hear it, right? Because when especially if an avoidant is coming back, they start telling you all these things like the floodgates open and you're like, what is happening here?
Unprovoked too. You're thinking this whole time you've been so closed up and now after the breakup, suddenly Mr. Vulnerable or Mrs. Vulnerable here.
It's really bizarre because it's like you can go from not having any information to them telling you everything. Things they've been thinking and feeling for months. And you're just like, what's happening? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle it.
And it's so interesting because the thing that you think is going to have the most impact on your ex is usually not the thing that actually does. You know, months down the line, even years sometimes, they might remember a small moment or an act of kindness that you did for them that you probably have already forgotten. Yeah. So the way you treat your partner really does matter.
Absolutely. So we got a really good email coaching today. And you're going to see a lot of things come up in this one, okay? So this one's going to be really helpful to understanding some of the things that your ex may be going through, thinking and feeling in no contact, and thinking about you and your relationship with them. Okay, so this is from a couple in their late 20s. They said, hello, Coach Craig. My ex is a guy in his late 20s who has had issues with depression. He lost his brother a few years ago, less than a year before we met. He and his brother were really close. We met through friends, and once we met, kind of had an instant chemistry. We stayed friends and got to know each other for about 6 months or so. Our friendship was really strong, and we got along better than I had with anyone else. So it sounds good so far. You know, they were friends for a bit. And they got to know each other.
There was also a major loss, which is important to note. And it was a sibling. But, you know, that is hard in and of itself because when you're growing up together, you don't expect something like that to happen.
No.
So I can't imagine what this is like for him.
It's very traumatic. It's very traumatic. And if you've ever lost somebody like a parent or a sibling or somebody really close to you, it takes some real time to get over and process. And I've talked about that for myself. And like a couple of years ago, I lost my dad, one of my best friends, and that friend's dad in the span of like 3 weeks. And that was really tough. It's really hard to get over 3 people that you really care about in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, grief really does overtake you.
Yeah, it's exhausting. For me, it was exhausting where my body would feel okay, but my face, I felt it like in my face just felt exhausted. Just completely drained of energy. So it was really tough.
Yeah. So it seems like at this moment she had met him while he was still probably processing some of that grief and going through with that.
Yep.
Which is a really special moment to meet somebody because he's entrusting in you somewhat, some level of support there of saying, I trust you enough to share this information with you. I trust you enough to have you alongside of me as I'm trying to process and figure out my grief.
And that's a great point, and exactly what we're talking about with this title. In those kind of things make somebody really love you a lot more and really see how much you bring to their life. So let's go on here. I think for a while, neither of us knew if we had feelings for the other, but of course, one night we went out and he kissed me. It had been a long time coming. I was convinced that I had found the one. I guess they were friends for a while first. They were friends for like 6 months,
Gotcha.
and she didn't think, I guess they both were like, did they like me? I can't tell. And then it happened. We started dating and got along great for about 9 months until we started having minor arguments. Thanks to your work in the creative healing course, I realized he is a fearful avoidant. I had no idea of attachment styles at all. I'm really committed to personal growth. He started shutting down on me out of nowhere about a year in, but I didn't have any idea why. And the first thing that I wonder is anniversary reaction. Is it maybe something that happened around that time? Maybe the brother's birthday? Maybe when he had passed? Any of those things can come up and really have an impact on somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And an attachment style really does have a huge impact on how people manage stress, manage grief, manage these life unexpected events. So if he is more on the avoidant side, it makes sense that he would withdraw at any type of external stress on their relationship.
Yeah. It felt like the more I pushed him to tell me what was going on, the more he would withdraw. I'd hear from him less and less over days. At first, I was convinced he was interested in someone else. And I think a lot of people would feel like that, right?
Yeah.
There's somebody else. You think somebody else is in the picture, because that's like one of those common things that people talk about. Oh, there's got to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is, but not always.
Right. And there's two different cycles that are happening here in this relationship so far. On the avoidance side, there's some sort of stress that's causing him to distance and withdraw. The more pressure that he's feeling from her asking, what's wrong? What's going on? Talk to me. The more he withdraws. So that in itself is a cycle. Then over here on the anxious side, we're having a cycle where she sees him distance, she worries, she asks, she gets nothing, she worries more.
Exactly, and then she pushes.
Right. And so we have two cycles that really aren't leading anywhere so far.
Yeah, it's just making it worse. Okay. All my friends told me that he had to be interested in someone else. They said he was playing with me and using me. I didn't think he was doing either of those things, but the more people told me that, the more I started to believe them.
And this is the tough part about having friends and family to talk to, is sometimes they can be very protective of you and sometimes overprotective to the point where, they're making accusations or jumping to conclusions that just aren't founded. So even though it can feel good to have something to point the blame to, sometimes it does go deeper. We don't want to just jump to assumptions without knowing, without talking, without considering all the options.
Yeah, when you're going through a breakup, you want to talk to everybody about it, your friends and your family. And I totally understand, because I was the same way. But as I've been doing this for many years, your friends and your family are probably going to tell you advice that makes your situation worse. I'm telling you, they don't understand breakups. They think they understand breakups. Everybody thinks they understand breakups. Heck, they've started their own channels. You can see many of them with terrible, toxic advice, immature advice, right?
Yeah.
And so friends and family, go to them, get things off your chest, talk to them, open up to them. But be very wary of what they tell you to do, because it may come from a good place, but it's likely going to make the situation worse. How many times have you seen that? Right?
Lots,
All the time.
lots.
Almost every day on a call, you hear at least somebody that got backwards advice from somebody else.
And I also want to note that this pattern here I've seen before, where a couple meets during a point in time when one person is really struggling at life. It could be a financial struggle, it could be grief, it could be illness, whatever it is. And from the get-go, the other person knows, okay, this person's going through something. But as the relationship progresses, they start taking their partner's behavior and partner's response to the stress as personal.
Yes.
You know, this is something that I've caused or I'm doing, without realizing, you know, this person had just lost a sibling. Can we go back to that? Can we remember that?
Well, what happens is when you get attached, your attachment issues come out. And if you're particularly sensitive to rejection, like maybe this person was feeling, then it feels like more about they're abandoning me again. I'm being abandoned again. Than it about he's really struggling with his depression. Okay, so let's go on. I got angrier and angrier. One night, we had planned on possibly meeting up. He didn't reply. It was not my finest hour, as we had been drinking. I lashed out and said, if you aren't interested in being in this relationship anymore, just tell me and stop wasting my time.
Oof.
Well, you know, that's why alcohol is not good when you're going through a breakup. Please stay away from alcohol if you're in a breakup. This is what happens a lot of the time. Hide your phone, lock it up, do whatever you have to do. Give yourself a map to go find it in the backyard in the morning with clues, but don't text them or call them when you're drinking. He said he was sorry and to give him a few days. I was so angry that he had played me. But I didn't. I just thought something doesn't feel right. It didn't feel like another woman, and he didn't feel like a player. Okay, so I think she's referring to that her friends and family made it seem like he's playing her, he's using her, he's going for other women, but she's saying, no, I didn't feel like that. That didn't make sense for me. He then told me he had really been missing his brother, that he had heard some songs that reminded him of him, and he felt terrible. He told me that his heart felt broken, that he was depressed and missing his brother had him feeling lost and confused. I can really feel for this guy. Because he didn't know how to talk about that. And sometimes when you're going through a loss like this, you can't even put it into words. And sometimes you don't want to put it into words. Sometimes you don't know how to put it into words. Sometimes you don't have the energy. Sometimes you don't want to open up about it because it's so difficult to go through it. But you can see he's really struggling.
Yeah, and it's important to remember even the smallest thing can be a trigger here. And trigger not in the negative sense that he's having an episode or anything like that, but more as a reminder of the loss.
Yep.
You know, here it happened to be this song that he heard, which brought him back to that intense state of grief, which if that is something that you're going through, that is tough to just brush aside and forget about or distract yourself from.
Yeah, you can't do it. I'll hear songs sometimes that come on the radio that remind me of my friend who was killed, and that's it. Like, it's hard when you're in that state. You really miss that person. You really think about them a lot, you know, especially if it's like some kind of tragedy. Then it makes it even harder. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's something that, you know, the feelings come up and they have to be respected. That's part of grief. That's part of the grief process.
Yeah.
I think part of the story is also just a misunderstanding of how grief presents itself in somebody's life and in relationships. I personally think if a lot more people were educated on this, a lot more relationships would still be intact.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we don't get taught this stuff in school, right? And even for us as clinicians, they don't really teach us this stuff. You have to, figure it out and learn it as you go. At this moment, I realized why he was hurting so much, and it hurt me seeing him hurt like this. I said, I love you, and I can be patient, but I want some assurances. He told me he had no interest in anyone else, that he felt more for me than anyone he had dated, but felt terrible because he didn't know if he could give me what I need. And that feels authentic to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to keep going, or you have a point?
No,
Okay.
keep going.
I told him I wasn't angry, that all he had to do was make some effort to communicate and let me know what was going on. I said it was fine if it was a text, an email, anything. Just give me some information when he could. I mean, that seems fairly reasonable. I mean, and understanding of her, you know, she's saying, okay, just tell me something. Just reassure me a little bit so I know, like, that this isn't, like, you know, a waste, or it's not going anywhere, or, you know, that she does feel important to him.
Yeah, and that's the hard part with grief. Sometimes some of your needs and relationships get put on hold.
Yeah.
Which, it's not something that, you know, you get a waiver with all this information about what you're signing up for as soon as you start to date this person. That doesn't happen. You just go into it and find out, oh wow, this person is less emotionally available than I thought. A lot of their emotional energy is going towards their grief.
Yep.
So that's the way that most people find out. And at this point, it seems like she has a decision to make. She's making a pretty reasonable request. I agree with you, to ask, hey, just some sort of heads up, some sort of, you know, I still want to do this, that I'm still in this, just give me time, or
Just
whatever.
show me that, like, you know, there isn't somebody else, that this
Right.
isn't about somebody else. And, you know, it didn't sound like there was any signs of it that looked suspicious, like out with other girls or taking pictures or whatever.
Yeah. And for him, we also have to understand his point of view, that he's right now very sensitive to any form of pressure or any form of requests. You know, this is like, I don't know if any of you have ever worked in the fast food industry. This is like when you have a whole line of orders that you have to prepare, and you're preparing, and then, you know, you have the shyest little quiet coworker in the back. Hey, old Miss Mary came in and she wants, you know, this sub or whatever, this sandwich. You're just like, I already have all of these other things on my plate. You know, the smallest request can seem gigantic.
Yeah,
So-
when you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
her completely reasonable request might be received as something even too big for somebody going through a grief like that.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what happens. She says, I knew it was a risk, that he might not ever be able to give me what I needed, but I also could see how much he was hurting. We didn't see each other for months. It was not easy. I knew I had no guarantees with him, but I tried to be strong and say, okay, I'm working on myself. I'm in therapy, found your channel, was doing your course, feeling better. He asked me to see him a few months ago. He said he was sorry for taking so long, that he knew this had to be difficult for me, and he felt really bad about that. He said he hates that. Okay, so that's a good sign. He's showing real thought into what she's going through over this, not just being selfish about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he's showing, I get how this is impacting you. He said that I was an amazing person and girlfriend. He said that he thought about me all the time, every day. It didn't matter if we had talked or not talked. I felt like his compass. I think she said it a little backwards there, but she means, like, I guess he kept thinking about her in this way that made him kind of like getting straightened out or something. That's
Yeah,
an
like
interesting.
she helped him be centered.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but not very often. He said there are things about me that make me love you twice as much as anyone I've ever known. I showed infinite patience. That even when he felt alone in a shell, I was the one person who made him want to come out. That I was strong. That even though everything was uncertain, he knew he could count on me. That he felt like I could handle anything. I certainly did not feel like that, LOL, but I'm glad he did. He said that he knew what I wanted and that I didn't ever push. I have to admit, I felt like pushing, and sometimes I felt like I did push him, but maybe that is just how it felt for me. He said he is willing to go to a counselor. He said he feels a little stupid for not trying to get help sooner, but doesn't want to keep feeling this way. I want to schedule a call with you soon. My friends think it's hopeless. Even if they do think he cares about me, at this point, they don't see him as a player anymore. Am I stupid for pursuing this? Okay, so obviously there are risks involved in this situation, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen with his depression. We don't know how long it will take him to grieve the loss of his brother or get over it or get to a place where he feels like he can enjoy life again.
Yeah.
So that's the big risk. It does sound like he really cares about you, and he did articulate quite nicely a lot of your good qualities that made him realize how much he cared about you. So that was really nice to see. I mean, he's saying she's infinitely patient. She made him want to come out of his shell, that he felt she was strong and certain and could handle anything. I mean, a lot of nice qualities. And so when you hear an ex saying these things to you, that they're pointing out these good qualities that you have, that's a good sign that a situation can turn around.
Oh, yeah.
That they're articulating, hey, I'm seeing these things about you, and these things about you make me realize that, we can turn this around, or, things are possible.
And in life, you have friends, and then you have friends. And in the same way, you have romantic partners, people that you're interested in, and then you have people that you are dating, people that you're invested in, and people who really show up for you. And it seems like he was able to tell you, you did show up. You were there for me. And even just sitting next to a person who's going through grief, that means so much. Hearing what he had to say about how she showed up almost brought a tear to my eye because of how much of an impact that is and how meaningful that is. That to me is a landmark moment. When he looks back and thinks back on this grief with his brother, he's going to think, who was really there for me? Who really helped me through that time where I couldn't even think straight because of everything that was happening. So I think that impact is huge. And, if anything, you should be very proud of yourself for being there for him. Yeah,
you did a great job. And obviously he was able to see it and tell you that. So, I certainly wouldn't say you were stupid for pursuing this. I would say that there are risks with pursuing this, but there are risks with anybody you date, really.
Yeah.
So you have to think about those risks and whether or not you want to take them. He is showing some positive signs, in my opinion, that, this is more likely to turn around than to him just walking away or giving up. Because he seems to really see her value. And it seems to be more about his well-being and not being in a good place than anything. And so if he gets to a better place, then obviously I think this is going to be a lot more likely to turn around.
I agree. I have a lot of hope for this situation, but we also know that with grief, it can also be unpredictable. So I would definitely give it time. Being with this person means that you're probably going to have to tolerate a little bit more than you usually would. If this person was not going through grief, it would be a completely different context and our advice would be completely different on this. So it's really up to you and how much patience you have. I think the positive note on this is that there is a strong emotional connection there. With him telling you all of this, he is being vulnerable with you. He's being very transparent and honest and able to tell you those good traits. Sometimes people who are married for 20 years can't even say a nice thing about each other.
Sometimes there's nothing nice to say.
So to me, this happening, the timing sure is strange because it's not how you would expect a normal relationship to go, but there is some benefits that the two of you can connect like this emotionally early on.
It's a tough situation because obviously you care about him as a person as well, not just somebody that you were interested in dating. But, even if this doesn't turn around romantically for whatever reason, I do think, you guys will have a special connection and a bond, and he'll always appreciate, you being there for him, you know? So if it's me, I would say, okay, this is a risky situation. There are possibilities, and you'll have to monitor, I suppose. You know, does he stay active in therapy? Does he give up? Does he start drinking and start going to a bar every day? You know what I mean? So you're going to have to watch along the way, and at certain points you can make decisions. But I'd say based on where you're at now, it's going in a healthy direction, and if it continues to go in a healthy direction, then great.
And I think that's a great point, that how he's managing this grief really is showing you how he manages grief in general. This might be a little bit taboo to talk about, but this probably won't be the only loss in his life if you're in it for the long haul. If you date this person for years and years and years, there's going to be other stresses and other losses, other types of losses that happen. So the fact that, sure, he is distancing, but he still is trying to communicate. I'm seeing little glimmers of effort and pushing through, and that to me is really hopeful. And no, I don't think that you're stupid for pursuing this. I think you have a really big heart, and I think that you're trying to understand him better.
Yeah, and for those of you out there, many of you are in situations where you were compassionate and had a big heart for your ex, and they'll likely see it as well. So it can be hard when you're sitting with a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of days where you're not hearing from that person, and you think, do they even care about me anymore? But oftentimes they are doing what this person did, this ex did, and they're constantly thinking about you, thinking about the things that you brought into their life, and missing you as well. Okay, so hopefully this has been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.